So apparently a new book came out, link in the description. Donald Trump blasted Esper and Milley. You know, General Milley? General Milley, the guy that Trump had a hard-on for. You know, General Milley, he's tough as nails, that General Milley. Okay, well, apparently General Milley and Esper, we know Esper was in on it because he held a press conference about how he refused to take military action on insurrectionists during the Black Lives Matter riots, okay? But Milley, we didn't know Milley was in on it. That General Milley, we didn't know he was in on it. Okay, but we do now. And we do know that Trump blasted them for it and then slunk away like a little cowardly fat powder puff. And the thing is, I was wailing on Trump on Twitter the whole time, telling him, get off your fat ass, get off your fat orange ass, I think is what I said a few times, and declare martial law and handle this problem. I alerted George W. Bush, who had used the National Guard and the Coast Guard during the Katrina disaster, and I told former President Bush, I said, why don't you educate this moron on the law? Because he keeps saying, I can't do it. Okay? So we know that Trump is a cowardly liar. Okay? Trump wanted to call out the armed forces against the Black Lives Matter insurrectionists. Now remember, they're insurrectionists. Keep in mind the difference between the January 6th insurrectionists and the Black Lives Matter insurrectionists. There's not much difference. The only difference is the insurrectionists on January 6th didn't successfully take over any part of the United States of America. They did not set any buildings on fire. And really, I think they killed one cop. But the thing is, the other difference is Black Lives Matter and Antifa. Remember, I do not support the January 6th insurrectionists. I think they were retards. I think that they should all be in prison. They should all have life in prison for trying to be insurrectionists. But the biggest difference between the Trump rioters and the Black Lives Matter rioters is the Trump rioters were fighting what they thought they were fighting for their country. The Black Lives Matter rioters and insurrectionists and the Antifa insurrectionists and rioters are still knowingly and publicly saying they are fighting against this country, against the United States of America. So you have the Trump rioters that are claiming to fight for the country and for voter voter integrity, and then you have Black Lives Matter and Antifa that admittedly are fighting against the United States government. And these are the people that Esper and Milley said that they refused to take action against. And when Trump tried to say that it was like the 1968 race riots, and there's going to be links in the description. Watch the 1968 race riots, and then watch the Black Lives Matter riots, okay? So the 1968 race riots, they told Trump, this is nothing like the 1968 race riots. It's nowhere near that bad. If you watch the 1968 race riots, and you watch the Black Lives Matter riots, the Black Lives Matter riots are thousands of times worse than the civil rights riots. Thousands of times worse, okay? And that's just obvious from the high amounts of fires, murders, rapes, looting. These things did not happen anywhere near as much during the 1968 civil rights riots. They did happen, but not to the extent, certainly not the high degree of murders and arson. Okay, and that's what you have to keep in mind. So how would I have handled this if I was President Trump? Well, what I would have done is I would have held a press conference, and I would have told the American people the military is actively working with communists, which they were working with Black Lives Matter at this point, basically our military joined with Black Lives Matter and Antifa to actively have a coup against the people of the United States of America. And it was Trump's responsibility as president to do that. What did he do? He slunk away like a fat ass. And that's why he's a coward. That's what I would have done. Now he's saying it. Now he's saying it. Okay, you're saying it now. After what? How many trillions of dollars in damage? How many people have been murdered? How many children? Trump attacked Syria because Ivanka Trump cried over God's children that got killed in the alleged gas attack in Syria, which has never been proven to even be a gas attack. But he attacked Syria and murdered God's children when he attacked Syria, in his words. God's children. What about the black children that were murdered by Black Lives Matter? What about the white children that were murdered by Black Lives Matter? What about the white mother that was murdered by Black Lives Matter? What about the black people that are murdered by Black Lives Matter? So none of these people are God's children. I guess none of these people are worth defending. Okay, what about the state houses taken over by Black Lives Matter? What about the auto dealerships and the auto parts stores and all of the places that have been set on fire? What about the environment that was ravaged by all the arson? None of this matters. These things are not God's children. Okay, when Trump attacked Syria after he promised, which was one of the reasons I voted for him, and the exact second I stopped supporting him was when he attacked Syria. Okay, keep that in mind. The second he attacked Syria was the second I stopped supporting him. I was not thrilled with his support of Israel, but the reason he attacked Syria, if you really look at it, the true reason, obviously, was because the Syrians were defending their airspace against an illegal Israeli jet that was in their airspace. So they shot it down. That's their job. That's what the Syrian military is supposed to do, defend Syrian airspace. So he attacked Syria because of Ivanka's little tears. Ivanka's little tears. Well, Ivanka doesn't cry for the large number of white children, black children, white women, and black people that were murdered by Black Lives Matter, does she? What about the people whose lives were completely destroyed when Black Lives Matter took over the Chaz Chop area in the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone in Seattle? Ivanka didn't cry hard enough for Trump to do anything? What about in Minneapolis when they burnt down half the city? Ivanka didn't cry enough. What about in Portland when they were attacking a federal courthouse? Ivanka didn't cry enough. Is this the excuse? Is this the excuse for him to allow his military to turn on the American people and side with insurrectionists? That's what happened. Do not make a mistake. And then Trump also did not do anything when his Department of Homeland Security started cracking down on white conservatives under the alleged poorly defined title of white supremacist extremists. As Tulsi Gabbard, when everybody was getting on my shit, Tulsi Gabbard doesn't support white people. Tulsi Gabbard isn't white. Tulsi Gabbard is half white. And she's the only people supporting white people. How many conservatives do you see out there defending white people's rights to speak? Tulsi Gabbard is the only political figure out there defending white people. Okay? And it's not because she's defending white people because they're white. She's defending white people because they're Americans and they have a right to speak. And they're not white supremacists. But according to Trump's Department of Homeland Security, he just let these people do whatever the hell they wanted to crack down on white conservatives. And then on top of that, how many white conservatives are still bowing to this idiot? That's the problem. So when people are going to, and I know, the reason I'm saying this is I know so many Trump supporters are going to be like, he couldn't do anything. His military turned on him. He should have made an appeal to the American people about how his military sided with the insurrectionists against the American people. And that is what they did while active terrorists were murdering Americans in our streets. That's what was going on. He was allowing Black Lives Matter and Antifa terrorists to murder American citizens of all races, all colors, all religions, and all ages in our U.S. streets. Okay, what about when they shamed the Fry guy? Remember the Mayor Fry? When they Jacob Fry, they humiliated him and made him walk through, and that's not screwing with our elections. That's not them trying to destroy democracy in the country, or when they violently took over a large chunk of Seattle and completely destroyed the people that were trapped behind enemy lines. And that's what it was. These were enemy lines. This is an active war against the United States people. And what did Trump do? I can't do nothing because I'm fat. Get me more McDonald's, but I'm going to have a Diet Coke. You know, this is what's really going on. That's all for this video.